Hi, this is Regeline Sabat, also known as Gigi. You're listening to Walk With Me podcast. My guest today is Brian Swanson. Brian Swanson is an entrepreneurial specialist. His background is diverse from retiring out of the U.S. Air Force, launching multiple networking groups, co-owning GalaxyFest, a pop culture convention, co-owning a comic book shop, and of course, helping individuals grow their wealth and change the financial future of their families. He's also the host of the Denim and Pearls podcast. Welcome to the show, Brian.
How you doing today, Gigi?
Fantastic. It's such an honor to have you here today. Now, why don't you start off by telling us about you and where you are from?
All right, little quick synopsis since we had some technical issues there. We'll make this through. I am an entrepreneurial specialist, so I've been doing entrepreneurship for quite a while now. But I originally came out of Indiana, born and raised kind of thing, and then went to college, all that kind of stuff, joined the military, traveled the world, retired out of the Air Force over in Colorado Springs. And once I did that, owned a comic book store, owned a Comic-Con. And if you don't know what those are, it's all dealing with comics and pop culture. And then after that, COVID hit. And now I'm sitting around doing my financial services business, which I've actually been doing for about 20 years. So financial services business. And then, of course, we were talking about Denim and Pearls, my podcast that I have with Michelle Mraz.
I love it. Now, what inspired you to become an entrepreneurial specialist?
Well, I don't know if it was an inspiration or if I just kind of fell into it. When I retired out of the Air Force, I was looking to build my network. I was looking to build that circle of influence. I was trying to do those kind of things so that I could build my financial services business. And coincidentally ran across a business partner where we started doing networking in order to help ourselves, but ended up creating a business in the process. And in the process of creating that business and creating that circle of influence, my partner actually ran across the Comic-Con where she tripped over R2D2, and she says, we have got to figure this out. We have got to bring these people into our world, and let's see what we can do with it. So we started doing that, and the next thing you know, some things happened, and the business changed hands into our hands, and we built that business up for a couple of years. And in the process of that, turned around and was looking for vendors, and one of the vendors we were talking to said that he was interested in selling. My partner said, hey, if you want to sell, just go ahead and let me know. And I laughed it off as we walked out the door. And then 2 weeks later, he sent an email and says, I'm ready to sell. So once we did that, we were into the comic book business, and the rest is history.
Absolutely amazing. Now, tell us more about your experience serving in the U.S. Air Force.
Well, that's a crazy experience because I could cover a lot of different stuff. I did spend 4 years prior to the Air Force in the Army. Decided one day that my story with that is I decided to look at the people around me, because somebody said, if you ever want to know where you're in life, where you are at that moment, look at the 10 people around you. So I did, and I was working as a welder, and I looked at one guy, and he had been at the business 15 years. Another guy had been there 18 years. And I went, no, this is not what I want to do. So I turned around, went down to the recruiter, switched from the Army Guard over into the Air Force, and spent the next 20 years working construction and working with airfield type stuff. So, when things get bombed on the airfield and all those reactionary things that you train for in case a war ever happens, did all of that stuff. And then I think my most joyous time was I spent a year in Korea being a dorm manager. So in other words, the apartments that we had for all of our officers, I was in charge of assigning the officers to those barracks and those apartments, if you will.
Fantastic. Now tell us more about GalaxyFest.
GalaxyFest was a 3-day pop culture convention that dealt with everything pop culture. So whether it's comic books, whether it's superheroes, whether it's Star Trek, Star Wars, we even went into doing other things pop culture for our nightly shows, or our adult shows of burlesque and body painting and different things like that. And it was a 3 days of nothing but a celebration of pop culture.
I love it. Now, you help others grow their wealth. Tell us more about that.
Well, I sit down with families and I look at where they're at now, and I look at where they want to go, and of course, coach them through that. And a lot of times, what I run across is the fact that people don't have enough coverage or life insurance in their lives, okay, in their families. If something happens to a breadwinner, those kind of things. So I sit down and make sure that they're properly covered. One of the big ways to look at it is if a breadwinner leaves us, suddenly, where does that leave the spouse to take care of the family? Um, I guess one of my drives for that is the fact that I hate looking up and seeing somebody doing a GoFundMe for a family who didn't have life insurance. So I sit down with that, and of course, planning for retirement, we put money away into different vehicles and stuff, and just hopefully once retirement comes and we make the right plan and they follow the plan and they're out of debt and they've got money in their pocket, they can retire and they don't have to work in certain places pushing carts for people.
Very powerful. Now, tell us more about your podcast, Denim and Pearls podcast.
Well, Denim Pearls was started back when COVID started. Shortly after COVID started, Michelle and I were sitting on the front porch and we were being neighborly because she needed somebody to talk to, and I was working on my yard, and she says, "Hey, can I come over? Let's chat. I'm safe." We were both safe from COVID because we hadn't been anywhere, and we're close neighbors, and we got to talking. And because of her experience as an international speaker, her experience as a business owner and an entrepreneur and a business coach and a speech coach and all of this other kind of stuff, we were having some really deep, serious conversations on the porch. And one day we looked at each other and said, "Hey, we should do this and get our words out to the rest of the world. They can learn from our experiences that we have shared or we have had over the last 40 years or whatever it's been." So we created Denim and Pearls podcast. We call it, Denim and Pearls, where it's business casual with pearls of wisdom from the porch. And each one of those phrases has something to do with, something important. Denim and Pearls is casual. It's not, diamonds and lace. It's just represents that business casual portion of it. So business casual, and then pearls of wisdom. Well, her and I both have lots of experience that we can share, and we love to share and educate other people and help them out. And then, of course, from the porch, really sits back and it says, "Let's have a conversation, not a speech, not something where you're going to go on stage and do a convention or something like that." So something a little bit more informal and something that you can really let loose and you can really ask the true questions that come on board. So when we do this live, there's people who write within the post while we're live, and we'll actually answer them from a casual standpoint.
Very powerful. Now, what is your why that keeps you going, Brian?
Well, everybody's, a lot of people like to say their wives or their spouse or whatever, their family. That's all important to me. But a lot of that drive also comes from just wanting to be a voice, to be out there, to help. Hey, there's Michelle.
Hey,
To be
Michelle.
out there, and share the information and knowledge that I have. I've always been one of those people who likes to create my own stage. And so creating your own stage can really be good because it can help and it can benefit many people at one time.
I love it. Now, Brian, was there a time in your life journey where you experienced an aha moment?
An aha moment. Aha, I'm an entrepreneur. There's actually an experience that I'm going through at the moment. And I won't go into a whole lot of detail here, but if you do go listen to the Denim and Pearls podcast, Michelle and I talk about it in kind of like the second half of the show. I'm actually at home with my mom in hospice, so I'm taking care of her in Indiana. And every day is a new experience. Every day is a new aha moment. Every day is something that I learn from myself, doing that introspection, if you will, and what happened in my childhood and why I am where I'm at today, what my mom did then and what she's doing now. It's been such an experience being here for the last 2 months. And it's just you do a lot of soul searching when you spend a lot of time by yourself or while mom's sleeping because she's sick.
Amen. I absolutely agree. Now, what brings you the most joy in your life?
Well, I don't know if we can discuss that on this show. Just kidding. I would go back again to just being, trying to be the smile in the crowd, trying to put the smile on somebody else's face, the positiveness, spreading joy and helping people. Because there's a lot of people out there that can use your help. And sometimes we don't know what it is until you're into the situation. So that's the part that kind of grabs my heart, if you will. I'm not the kind of person that goes out and does all kinds of crazy things looking for emotional type things. But in retrospect, with our conversation here, it's a matter of helping people, but it's also a matter of sharing my wealth and or not my wealth, but sharing my knowledge. Haven't shared the wealth yet. We're working on that. But the wealth of knowledge, how's that?
Fantastic. Now, what is your best advice to the audience for walking with purpose and living a life of happiness?
I think we all have to do it. We all have to keep a positive flow in our lives. We have to not worry about the past. And one of the biggest words that I hate and I feel is a very strong words is regret. You shouldn't regret anything. And if you do, at least learn from it. Because once you learn from it and you understand why it happened and how you can keep it from happening again, then you won't have a regret anymore, and you won't have to live with that on your heart for the rest of your life. So find a way to make something, educational, if you will, from what you've done in the past. In other words, learn from your mistakes and move forward and leave the regret behind.
Leave the regret behind and don't worry about the past. Very powerful, very inspiring. Thank you, Brian. And thank you for being a guest on Walk With Me podcast. Now, where can the audience find you?
Well, the easiest way to find me right now is either my personal Facebook page at Brian Swanson or denimandpearlslive.com is a way to get to our podcast. That's where just kind of a landing page and get you interested in what's going on and where we're at and where you can find us. But Facebook Live, what's the other one? YouTube Live. And then, of course, all across the podcast streams of Apple and Spotify and you name the gamut, we're out there.
Absolutely amazing. Ladies and gentlemen, make sure to check out Brian at denimandpearlslive.com. And Brian, again, thank you so much for being a guest on Walk With Me podcast. You have a blessed day.
Well, thank you very much. Even though this was short because we had our technical issues, but you know what? We got through it and great stuff. Thanks, Gigi.
Yes, sir.